Welcome everyone to the SciCast. We are your guides today, the NPCs.
That's us. Think of us as your friendly quest givers. But instead of fetch quests, we've got some serious intel for you.
And this intel comes directly from our producer and researcher, SciGuy. He put together this incredible deep dive, Final Fantasy VIII, the details within.
And we really mean it when we say this one was special for him. FF8. It's his absolute #1 Final Fantasy, maybe even his favorite game. Full stop.
Yeah, you can feel the passion in these notes. So as the NPCs, we're here to drop some knowledge bombs straight from his research. We've got articles, notes, developer insights, the works.
It's going to be good. Now, quick heads up, we're kind of recording this guerrilla style, maybe hiding in a seed training facility closet.
Something like that. So if the sound's a little glitchy here and there, please forgive us. Consider it atmospheric interference.
Exactly. Part of the charm. All right, let's do this.
Okay, let's dive in. We're exploring Final Fantasy VIII using SciGuy's amazing research, our mission, to pull out the key insights, the surprising facts, and really get under the hood of this, well, pivotal game.
It really was pivotal. So setting the scene. FF8 launched in 1999, hot on the heels of FF7, which was, a global mega hit.
Right, and it wasn't just another Final Fantasy, it deliberately took a different path, didn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Big departures, like no traditional MP system at all.
Mm-hmm.
And the character models. They went for realistic proportions across the board. Field models, battle models, everything.
That was a huge change from FF7's chibi field models, a massive visual leap, really pushing what the PlayStation could do, especially with all those FMVs, the full motion video sequences.
So many FMVs.
Mm-hmm.
And despite these big changes, or maybe because of them, it was a monster success right away. Commercially, critically, it landed big.
So what was the thinking? Why change a winning formula so drastically?
Well, the director, Yoshinori Kitase, he had a very specific vision. The research says he wanted a foreign atmosphere looking towards Europe for inspiration.
And something else too, right? A feeling.
Yeah, a bright and fresh feel. Almost the opposite of FF7's darker, more industrial world.
And the character designs were key to that, Tetsuya Nomura's work.
Definitely. Nomura stated he used his actual style of drawing for FF8. He leaned into the realism he personally liked, which, fit perfectly with Kitase's vision.
So it was a conscious effort. Evolve the look, make it feel maybe a bit more grown up to match the story they wanted to tell.
Totally deliberate. They weren't afraid to shake things up visually.
And that ambition wasn't just skin deep. It went right into the core gameplay, didn't it, with the junction system?
Ah, yes, the junction system. Still debated today. It basically threw out the classic MP and equipment system we knew.
So instead of equipping swords and armor, you equipped magic.
Kinda. You'd draw magic spells from enemies or points in the world, stock them up like hoarding inventory items, and then you'd junction or assign stacks of that magic directly to your stats. Strength, HP, speed, luck, everything.
The research highlights that this allowed for, insane customization. You could make your character super powerful really early if you knew what you were doing.
That's the upside. Huge depth. But the flip side, and the notes are clear on this too, was the criticism. People find it really complex, sometimes overwhelming.
And the drawing part. Clicking draw over and over.
Tedious. Yeah, that's a word that comes up a lot. And it could totally break the game's difficulty curve if you really exploited it, especially with things like the card mod ability.
Right, card mod.
Look,
refining triple triad cards into powerful magic and items, you could get high-end spells way faster than drawing them.
Exactly. It's
Right.
kind of funny, right? The core mechanic is drawing, but they give you a shortcut almost right away. It really speaks to how experimental, maybe even risky, that whole system felt.
It feels like FF8's whole identity is tied up in that ambitious, sometimes messy design. They really went for it, and whether you loved or hated the junction system, you couldn't ignore it.
It defined the experience for a lot of players. Okay, so who are the people actually making these big decisions? The architects of this world.
Let's talk about the key team at Square. It was a powerhouse lineup.
For sure. You had Yoshinori Kitase directing, shaping that overall vision, contributing to the story.
And Hironobu Sakaguchi, the father of Final Fantasy, as executive producer. But his role was a bit different this time.
Yeah, this is interesting. SciGuy's notes highlight Sakaguchi actually delegated the main directing job to Kitase. Why? Because Sakaguchi was deep in development for the Final Fantasy, the Steer It's Within movie.
Wow, that's a major shift. Trusting Kitase with the flagship series while he focused on the film. A real changing of the guard moment.
It really was. Then there's Tetsuya Nomura. We mentioned his character designs, but he was also the battle visual director. His style defined the look, but he was also involved in story concepts and making the battles look cool. His influence was clearly growing.
And writing that intricate story, that was Kazushika Nojima.
Yep, he penned the whole thing. Squall's inner thoughts, the whole garden setup. The research mentions he specifically approved Nomura's school days concept, which gave us Balam Garden.
And you can't talk FF8 without talking about the music. Nobuo Uematsu, the composer and musical director.
Absolutely legendary. Uematsu created that iconic score. His goal, he said, was to weave the music so tightly with the emotion that it could actually move players to tears.
Quite a goal. The research also lists Shinji Hashimoto as producer.
Yusuke Naora as art director, working with Nomura on that realistic aesthetic.
Yoshitaka Amano, of course, continuing the tradition with his beautiful image illustrations.
Tomohiro Kayano heading up character modeling, making those designs work in 3D.
And here's one Saigai flagged specifically, Kentaro Yasui.
Ah, the creator of Triple Triad, a programmer who conceived and implemented that incredibly addictive card game. Seriously, it became a phenomenon all its own.
Totally. And managing those massive FMV sequences, Norimichi Kurosawa.
The investment in those FMVs was huge for the time. The research mentions a dedicated team of around 35 people. And the final game has about an hour of FMV runtime. It wasn't just visual flair. It was a statement about wanting a cinematic feel.
I remember reading Nomura specifically challenged the FMV team with animating Squall's fur collar realistically. A small detail, but it shows that push for technical excellence.
Definitely. It speaks volumes about their ambition.
Speaking of ambition and emotion, let's dive deeper into that music. Uematsu's score, it really feels central to the game's identity.
And absolutely is. Uematsu wanted the music tied directly to the story's core themes: love, war, witches. Those are his anchors.
And he changed his approach from previous games, right? Like no individual character themes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Unlike FF6 or FF7, where major characters had distinct leitmotifs, here he focused the main thematic weight on the Squall and Rinoa relationship, primarily through the main theme, Eyes on Me.
How did he compose it?
The research notes he used a Roland SC88 synth for the in-game music and drew inspiration directly from Nomura's character designs and Nojima's script.
Okay, let's hit some highlights. You have to start with Liberi Fatali, that opening.
Oh, yeah. That epic Latin choral piece, it just grabs you immediately. And it's not just the opening. That melody weaves through the score, popping up in tracks related to Seed, like The Landing.
And that unforgettable phrase, Fithas lutsek, wikos vinosek.
It's nonsense syllables, technically, but it instantly evokes the sorceresses, right? It's become iconic. Sagai's notes even include a, quote, calling Liberi Fatali, potentially Uematsu's single greatest piece, high praise.
And then the big one, Eyes on Me, the vocal theme by Fei Wong.
Groundbreaking for the series, first pop ballad main theme. And it wasn't just tack on, the lyrics are integral to the plot. They're written from the perspective of Julia Hartley, Ridua's mother, a singer in the games world.
And Uematsu handpicked Fei Wong.
He did. The research says he felt her voice and mood were perfect. Plus, her being an international Asian star fit Square's goal for a more global image for FF8.
And it worked. Commercially, it was huge. Over 500,000 singles sold in Japan won a Gold Disc Award. It proved a vocal theme could resonate massively.
The whole soundtrack nails those themes. Love comes through in tracks like Julia or Love Grows.
The war and the whole military academy vibe are there, and Seed, The Landing, Movin'.
And the Witches theme is so well defined, with pieces like Succession of Witches, Heresy, and of course, Fithos Lusek Wakos Vinosek.
The popularity is clear from the soundtrack releases, too. The main OST, the orchestral album, the piano collections. People wanted this music.
Critics loved it, too. Memorable, terrific, brilliant. Those words pop up a lot in the reviews Saigai compiled. IGN ranked it the 4th best FF soundtrack ever.
GameSpot even said it had more quality songs than 7, which, considering FF7's score, is saying something.
Square Enix Music Online pointed out how well it balanced the intense moments with lighter ones. There were some minor quibbles, maybe about the battle theme variations or percussion, but overall, huge critical success.
And the cultural reach. Eyes on Me launched Fei Wong internationally for many. But the Olympics thing, that's wild.
Right. The U.S. synchronized swimming duo, using Fithos Lusek, Wikos Vinosek, and Liberi Fatali for their bronze medal routine in 2004. You can't make that up.
And DJ Afrojack sampling The Landing, the music just had legs.
It really did. It became part of the cultural conversation beyond just the game.
Okay, so you have this massive game, complex systems. How did people figure it all out back in 1999? No easy internet walkthroughs back then.
The age of the physical strategy guide.
Yeah.
They weren't just helpful. For a game like FF8, they felt almost necessary, especially with the junction system.
Brady Games was a big name, right? And David Cassidy wrote the official FF8 guide.
Yeah, Saigai's research lists, Cassidy's guide, even notes different ISBNs suggesting multiple printings or versions. These things were tomes.
Not just a few pages.
No way. We're talking detailed walkthroughs for everything, main quest, side quests, pages and pages of maps. One source mentions over 450 maps just for certain areas.
Wow. Plus item lists, magic lists showing draw points.
A complete bestiary, enemy stats, weaknesses, and crucially, boss strategies. For FF8, knowing boss weaknesses and what magic to draw from them was vital.
Understanding junctioning, finding missable GFs or items, these guides were your lifeline.
Absolutely. In that era, before game FAQs was ubiquitous, the official guide was often your best friend for a complex RPG like this. It was how you navigated the deep end.
And they weren't just aids for players, were they?
Nope. The research points out they were a significant revenue stream. Licensed products, part of the whole ecosystem around a major game release, they made money.
Makes sense. Okay, let's shift focus back to the world itself, specifically the characters who live in it. How did Nomura approach designing them?
We touched on his realistic, actual style, working with art director Yusuke Noura. FF8 was the first game in the series where characters had those consistent, realistic proportions everywhere, cutscenes, gameplay, and everything.
And he put a lot of thought into it beyond just the look.
Oh yeah. He wanted names and clothes to reflect personality. He wrote initial backstories. He was the one who pitched the school days concept.
And challenged the animators with Squall's fur collar.
Exactly. And made deliberate choices, like ditching Irvine's goggles so he wouldn't look like Sid from FF7. It was all about creating distinct, memorable characters.
Let's talk specifics. Squall Leonhardt. He apparently changed quite a bit.
He was the first one Nomura designed. Initially, longer hair, maybe a bit more androgynous.
But Kita stepped in.
Yep, the director requested a change. Shorter hair, more traditionally masculine look. Shows that director-designer back and forth.
And the scar?
Nomura added the scar for visual interest before the writer, Nojima, came up with the dual backstory that explained it. This is a cool look first, story second.
And he was modeled after River Phoenix, physically.
Right. Personality-wise, the idea was reserved, but someone who could be quite talkative if you hit on a subject he cared about.
Okay, Rinoa Hartley, the leading lady.
Nomura designed her and personally oversaw her CG model. Here's a great bit from the research. Catv apparently loved Nomura's early Rinoa sketches so much he had the script changed to give her a bigger role. That's why she has the most FMV screen time.
Wow. But Nomura found her hard to draw.
Yeah, he said he struggled because he didn't want her just conventionally beautiful. He wanted her cute and memorable, with a distinct personality. He even made lists of unique habits and speech patterns for her.
The goal was charm over classic beauty.
Exactly. Things like her stubby eyelashes, small lips, goofy but sincere smile. Those were intentional choices to make her appealing in a unique way, someone who could realistically capture Squall's heart.
And the motion capture for her and Idea was done by Mayuko Aoki.
Correct. Moving on to Kusta's tribe.
The instructor.
Also, Nomura. The main design note Saigai found was her wearing pants, a specific choice made after Selphie was given a skirt, just to ensure visual variety among the female leads.
And that trivia about her triple triad card facing right, the only one.
Yep. A fun little detail. Zeldinched.
The hyperactive martial artist.
His energy came through in the motion capture. Kuji Kiyomori did the general movements and Hoken Sonoda did that iconic bat flip animation.
Selphie Tilmet.
Nomura actually designed her before Squall, that unique flip hairstyle.
Yeah.
Nomura thought it was kind of dated, referencing the Eisenhower era and maybe improper in real life, but it gave her a distinct look.
And her outfit changed, too.
Yeah, originally overalls, but switched to the miniskirt for variety when Christie's got pants. The game specs her out. 17 years old, 156 centimeters. She was often praised for her cheerful vibe.
Lastly, Irvine Kinneys, the sharpshooter.
Nomura refined his design. The aim was cool looking, but not overly serious, a bit more laid back than Squall.
You almost had goggles.
Almost. But they dropped them because it felt too close to Sid Highwind from FF7. Again, maintaining that character distinction was key.
Okay, shifting gears again, let's talk business. FF8 wasn't just a creative statement, it was a commercial juggernaut.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Huge seller on the original PlayStation. The numbers vary slightly depending on the source and cutoff date, but Saigai's research points to figures around 8.5 or 8.6 million units sold for the PS1 version alone.
And across all versions, including the later PC release.
By August 2019, the total worldwide sales for PS1 and the 2013 Steam release had topped 9.6 million units. Easily one of the best-selling titles in the entire franchise. The launch was explosive. It was the fastest-selling Final Fantasy game right up until FF13 came along.
The first day revenue in Japan, $151 million USD. That's insane.
Absolutely staggering. And over $50 million in North America within 13 weeks. It just flew off the shelves. Shows the hype after FF7, the brand power, and, the appeal of the game itself.
And getting that greatest hits or platinum status later on confirms it wasn't just a launch phenomenon. It kept selling.
Right. Those labels usually meant clearing well over 1 million units, so it had sustained popularity.
What about the 2019 remaster on modern consoles? Do we have sales numbers for that specifically?
Psyguy's research indicates that specific, standalone unit sales figures for the remastered version aren't easily found in the sources he compiled. Sales data often gets aggregated now, making it hard to isolate just that version.
Gotcha. And the development cost for the original?
Reported at just under $30 million USD, which sounds like a lot, but compare it to FF7's estimated $45 million.
And given that massive launch revenue,
it was profitable almost instantly. That $30 million investment was recouped incredibly quickly. A huge financial success for Square.
All right, this is always fun. Let's get into some of the trivia, the fun facts, the behind-the-scenes nuggets Psyguy unearthed.
Yeah, the little details. We mentioned Squall's Fur Collar being an animation challenge.
And Umatsu picking Fei Wong for Eyes on Me, based on voice and mood.
The budget under $30, team size around 180 core members.
Kitasa's aiming for that foreign, bright and fresh atmosphere, distinct from FF7.
Squall's scar being a visual idea before it was a story point.
And River Phoenix being the inspiration for his look.
The dedicated FMV team, 35 people, about an hour of footage. Massive undertaking.
And gotta shout out Kentaro Yosui again, the programmer who dreamed up Triple Triad. So popular it led to real cards.
The research even found dummied-out spells for Selfie's limit break percent catastrophe. Data exists, but they didn't make the final cut.
Plus that unusable apocalypse spell you can draw from the final boss. Weird.
Quistis's Triple Triad card facing right, the only one.
The Radon Dalit music track being on the disc and demo, but not used in the final game sequence.
Okay, here's a really big one regarding development realities.
Yeah.
The Laguna story.
Oh yeah, tell us about that.
According to Psyguy's notes, Laguna's sections were originally planned to be way more substantial. Potentially as big as Squall's story, maybe even the entire first half of the game.
Wow, seriously?
Yeah. But due to time and budget pressures, it got significantly cut down and integrated through those dream sequences instead.
That really shows how even huge projects have to make tough cuts. A whole potential structure changed during development.
Absolutely. It's a fascinating glimpse into the process. Another interesting design choice. The teen characters were deliberately drawn to look older, maybe early to mid-20s.
Why was that?
To give it more of a Dawson's Creek-style cast movie feel, fitting that cinematic ambition. Squall was apparently modeled after a musician in his 30s.
And Sakaguchi stepping back from directing because of the Spirits Within movie.
Development starting while FF7's English version was still being worked on. Shows how Square was already moving forward.
A possible idea concept originating back in FF7 development, maybe as a Genova type.
Speculation, but interesting. And that minor censorship detail. The Jirajiro boss having reddish intestines in Japan, but bluish-gray in the West.
The game showing up in the Charlie's Angels movie.
And all those Star Wars nods, Biggs and Wedge, the NPC Piet,
Yeah.
nods to the classics.
Plus the Olympics and DJ Afrojack using the music.
All these little things add up, painting a picture of a hugely ambitious project aiming for broad cultural impact, trying to bridge games and cinema.
Okay, so we've seen the ambition, the details, the sales. Let's look at the critical reaction. How did reviewers receive FF8 at launch, and how has its reputation evolved?
Initial reception was overwhelmingly positive, high scores everywhere. Game rankings average was 89%, Metacritic at 9100. Famitsu in Japan gave it 3740, almost perfect, and later called it one of the best games ever.
Edge Magazine's 910 is notable, especially calling it far more accomplished than FF7. High praise, though they did note the length and called the battle system bewildering, even as they relished it.
EGM gave it 95%, loved the character development, called it a pinnacle, but yeah, mentioned the GF animations could drag.
Game Informer 9.510, GameSpot 9.510, praising the customization. Lots of high scores.
IGN's 910 for the PS1 version is interesting. They love the presentation, the opening, the ending, but called the gameplay the weakest link, mentioning GF tedium again. But they also called the battle system intensely complicated yet refreshingly innovative. Their PC review was lower, though, citing technical issues and draw tedium.
Even OPM US gave it a perfect score, though other reviews definitely brought up the grind of stocking spells via draw.
So the consensus praise at launch was for the story, the amazing visuals, character depth, the idea of the junction system's innovation, and those jaw-dropping FMVs.
And the recurring criticisms were the game's length, those long GF animations you couldn't skip, and the junction draw system being complex, tedious, and potentially unbalanced.
Fast forward to today, and the view is often more nuanced. It's seen as ambitious, unique, but flawed. A radical departure, as Kotaku put it. One academic source Saigai found called it a bigger swing, focused on grounded character drama and artistic integrity.
And the love story seems to have endured as a major positive legacy.
Definitely. Which brings us right back to that junction system. Let's really break down why it was so divisive.
Okay, the basics again. Equip GFs. GS learn abilities. Abilities let you junction magic stacks, 1/100, to stats. Get magic via drawing, draw points, or refining items cards.
Right. The pros. Unmatched customization. Building super powerful characters early. Direct control over stats, which some preferred to just leveling up.
But the cons? Majorly complex is a phrase from the research. Tutorials maybe weren't clear enough for everyone.
And the tedium of drawing. Click, click, click for potentially hundreds of spells across your party.
Plus, using magic offensively weakens you because it lowers your junction stats. Discourages spell casting.
And the enemy level scaling. If you just leveled up normally without good junctions, enemies got stronger, but you didn't necessarily, making things harder. It pushed you to engage with junctioning.
It really is the core of the FF8 debate, isn't it? Brilliant system or tedious mess. Though card mod helped ease the drawing pain significantly for those who used it.
It perfectly captures FF8. Ambitious, different, maybe not perfectly executed for everyone, but unforgettable.
Beyond mechanics, what about the story themes? Why does the narrative still stick with people?
The research points to clear core themes. Love, obviously, with Squall and Riolu. Identity, especially with the memory loss element, memory itself. And time. The love story is often seen as the anchor. Squall's growth from cold loner to opening up is powerful for many players.
Memory and time are huge. The orphanage reveal, the amnesia, that GF fan theory fits right in there. Elone's power, Ultimecia wanting to compress time. It's complex.
The whole seed child soldier aspect is there too, though maybe less explored than it could have been.
And the villain's idea, Adele, Ultimecia. Some critics felt Ultimecia's motives were underdeveloped, but her goal was time compression.
The plot does get wild, especially later on. Disc 3 onwards is where some critics felt it got convoluted, mentioning things like the NORG subplot is confusing.
But the argument is, even if the plot gets a bit messy, that central emotional journey of Squall and Riolu stays clear and provides the through line.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Saigai's research suggests that despite debates on mechanics or plot points, the strength of the character narrative is a huge part of why FF8 remains so memorable and beloved by many.
So wrapping this all up, where does Final Fantasy VIII stand in the grand tapestry of RPG history?
It's a landmark title, no question. Not just another sequel, it was a statement.
First mainline FF with those consistent realistic models everywhere set a new visual standard for the series on PS1.
That groundbreaking use of Eyes on Me, integrating a pop vocal theme so deeply into the narrative and emotion. A first for FF.
The unique, divisive, but undeniably innovative junction system. A total overhaul of magic and progression.
And that full commitment to a cinematic experience with those extensive, high-quality FMVs, pushing the hardware, pushing the medium.
It carved out its own space by being different.
The mature themes, the central love story, those still resonate. Uematsu's score is legendary.
Yeah.
And Triple Triad. Can't forget Triple Triad.
But it's complicated, right? Praise for ambition, story, music, criticize for mechanics, plot complexity.
Exactly. The research paints it as this vital bridge, a moment of intense experimentation for Square, taking FF7's 3D leap and pushing towards the PS2 era's cinematic potential.
It shows a developer willing to take huge risks, even with their biggest franchise.
Absolutely. And maybe the final thought here, something Saigai's notes seem to suggest, for all the talk about systems and graphics and complexity.
Yeah.
Maybe the most enduring thing about FF8 is that character-driven emotional story. It proves that even in the most complex RPG, connecting with the characters and their journey might be what sticks with you the most long after you've forgotten the optimal junction setup.
A powerful thought to end on. And that concludes our deep dive into Final Fantasy VIII. the details within, all thanks to Psyguy's fantastic research. We hope you enjoyed exploring it with us, your friendly NPCs.
It was a blast unpacking all of that. It really is a game that keeps generating discussion even decades later. Just shows the impact it had.
Remember, you're awesome. Never let the world tell you otherwise. Stay safe. Stay safe.